Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Yalla, the podcast of Jewish students brought to you by the Union of Jewish Students of the UK and Ireland. I'm Josh. I'm UJS's Campaigns and Jewish Enrichment and Engagement Officer.
And I'm Bella from the University of Birmingham studying biomedical sciences.
On today's episode of Yalla, we're joined by Pnina Agenyahu. Sorry, I'll do that again. We can edit it. On today's episode of Yalla, we're joined by Pnina Agenyahu, the Director of Partnership Together at the Jewish Agency for Israel. In her role, Pnina connects diverse Jewish communities from around the world, celebrating and strengthening their unique identities.
Her journey to this position began at a very young age. Pnina made Aliyah at just 3 years old, carried on her mother's back as they walked 2 weeks from Ethiopia to reach Israel. She was part of the early wave of Ethiopian immigrants in 1984. And even as a child, Pnina showed a natural talent for leadership and advocacy on behalf of her community. Welcome, Pnina, to the podcast.
Thank you.
So just to start off, could you share some of your memories from your early childhood and the journey that your family made from Ethiopia to get to Israel?
Yes. So I'll be honest, I was around 3 years old. So I do not have my own memories, but I do carry the memories of my mother and my older sister, who was 7 years old when we came to Israel. And actually, yesterday there was just published on one of the newspaper in Israel we marking 40 years from that Aliyah on November 27, 1984. And 10 years ago, when I was doing a research in the university, or even more than 10 years ago, I found a book of Micha Feldman that's called Yetziat Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Exodus. And there was pictures over there. The same picture was appearing on the newspaper yesterday. And the picture, it's of my sister and myself and my mom, which is a historical picture, apparently, of the documenting the first families of the first wave of Ethiopia. So we basically were one of the first families to arrive to Israel on November 27, 1984. And I was 3, as I said. My sister was 7, and my mother was around 27. Me personally do not have memories, but there's many stories of my mom about carrying me because I was too little to walk. My sister did walk barefoot for 14 days and, walking for around 400 kilometers to arrive Sudan, a refugee camp by the Red Cross. And over there, we all shared tents. It was a refugee camp with big white tents. Will be a bunch of families all together. We were part of 30 people that walked from our small village in Tikal Dengia near Gundar to Sudan, and we tried to stick together, as my mom telling me, because by that you also were able to observe your life as a Jew among the small group. We couldn't identify it as a Jew outside of that group. We will sneak out at night and do a Jewish costume because we didn't want people to see that we're Jewish or recognize us as a Jew, including my own dress, which was used to be knitted with the Jewish star. And my mom, before we start walking, took off the Jewish star and knitted on that across just to look assimilated. But today, if you see the dress, and I still have it 40 years later, you can see the holes that show you the Jewish stars that was underneath. But we needed to hide our identity as a Jew. And that's one of the things that my mom told us when we were little. And part of it was also to keep ourselves safe. For her, the big challenge was to keep the 2 little girls safe and also to keep us alive because there wasn't enough food and water for everyone. And today I know as an adult that the numbers of the major numbers that lost their life out of the 4,000 people that lost their life during the same journey, around 2,000 were kids from 0 to 3, which my age back then. So only a couple years ago, I actually understood that I survived a trauma and I survived something horrific like that because I never saw myself as a survivor of something. But just looking into those data from a late research that had been done, 8,000 people survive and make that home like us, but around 4,000 people lost their life. And out of those 4,000, 2,000 were kids that in lack of water and food and disease couldn't survive. So one of the stories I carry with me as a sweet memory, if you can call it, is that as a baby, as a child, I didn't eat much, a lot. The only thing that kept me alive is breastfeeding my mom. Even at age of 2.5, although my mom didn't have enough food herself eating, somehow, I don't know, she called it the miracle. She a true believer of God, and she truly believed that it's her faith in God that God watch us. But somehow I had something eating by just breastfeeding, and that's how I survived. And when we arrived to a refugee camp, we stayed there for 8 months. We've been there 8 months for waiting until we've been called by the Mossad people that arrived secretly at night and took us from Gadrif to Khartoum, to another city in Sudan, for 2 hours drive on a truck, a hidden truck by, covered. We couldn't talk the entire time. And from there, at least our group flew to Greek, and from Greek to Israel. So it wasn't a short flight of 4 hours as we able to do today for new immigrants from Ethiopia. For us, it took around 9 months to make it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You said that your family was one of the first to make Aliyah. So what role has your family played in preserving the Ethiopian Jewish traditions that you had growing up in Israel?
So when we came to Israel, we were based in absorption center in Maalot, which do not exist anymore. Some of them still exist. And my mom was part of a small group of young women that were very active, and they were more supporting each other in keeping the tradition and culture and heritage. As a child, most of our Aliyah, the kids from the 80s, were I don't want to say forced, but was immediately or sent into Orthodox education system. There wasn't a question. I mean, our parents couldn't choose between secular to Orthodox education. With 90% or 95% of our Aliyah went to Orthodox school. And that's what happened to myself as well, my sister. And we never saw that as a negative thing. I mean, for our parents, it was actually the best way when they saw that in Israel, there's different kind of Jews. And for us in Ethiopia, being a Jew was just being a Jew. You didn't had the privilege to be, secular, traditional, conservative, or reform. It was just being a Jew, a biblical Jew, very simple, very determined in your an observant of being a Jew. So for many of, not only myself, but a lot of what the first families were caring about in the first years in Israel, it's to balance between, the way we observe Judaism at home and the Judaism that we practice outside of home. So for us as kids, we went to Orthodox school, and all of a sudden we learn about the Halacha word and Oral Torah. And just for example, Purim and Hanukkah, it's two holidays that we never celebrate in Ethiopia. We celebrate Purim in a different way. And for our parents, it was a huge gap that they need to close down by themselves, but also learning and observing, and also we call it in Amharic behalachin, our culture. It was very important for them that the first years for those families to keep our behalachin, our culture, not only inside the house, but to be proud of our culture and keep it, and to balance between them. So, for example, Purim in Ethiopia, we heard about Esther, the queen, fasting for 3 days. We never heard about the happy end. We never heard about the part of with the customs. So for many of us for our parents, all of a sudden to see that Purim is a happy holiday and the customs and basket of goodies. Well, usually in Ethiopia you fast for 3 days. And it's a time where you looking for tshuva as a people, as a community. So things like that. And I think our parents had a very significant, and our generation has a significant part in pushing forward the holiday of Sigd, which is a Jewish holiday that used to be observed by many communities. But the Ethiopian community was the one that really kept it for years and observed it for years. And even though as a child, I observed it at home, I didn't see that outside. And so as I grew up, when I knew that at home it's important and significant holiday, and also for my grandparents, for me it was so obvious in high school to be proactive about it. And then when I grew up, to be leading something around the Sigd holiday. And today, thankfully, it's something that very common and it's on the Jewish calendar and been celebrated all over the country.
Thank you. So were there any traditions that you would say were your favorite, saying that they sometimes differed and were unique?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's something that people doesn't really know, and my friends always surprised about it. But that everyone think that the reform movement started in Europe, right? In making it equal between women and men. So I have to say that in Ethiopia, we were the first one to be kind of trying to be equal, but in a different way. Because the prayer for the challah for Shabbat, for example, when you do the blessing, it's still the man blessing, not the woman. It's more about the purity that we observe strictly. But the blessing always included the mothers and the fathers. It wasn't only Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it was also Sarah, Rachel, and Leah. In all prayer, they always mention both. So the equality about, the forefather and our mothers was even before the reform movement started. I always like to say that. And I love this part traditionally. And what we tweak it a bit or make it maybe more modern in my own family with my 3 kids is that in Shabbat, my husband do the service for the Kiddush, Slicha, on Friday night. But in Shabbat morning, I'm doing the Kiddush and then it's, and then we kind of mix in both and I like it because this is my way to keep both tradition equal and at home and feel that it's part of us and not, it doesn't have to be overlapping or instead of something else.
So you briefly mentioned the holiday of Sigd, which was one of the reasons why we thought it'd be appropriate to kind of bring you on around this time, as a bit of an explainer for the viewers and listeners. On the 29th of November, which is also coincidentally the 29th of the Hebrew month of Cheshvan, 50 days after Yom Kippur, the Ethiopian Jewish community, especially in Israel, will be celebrating Sigd. Could you explain a bit more about it? What's meaningful about it? What's meaningful about it to you?
Yeah, better. So first of all, the Sigd have 2 major values, I think. First is, as you said, it's 50 days after Kippur. A lot of our community members call it also a small Kippur because you fast that day, half day, Machatzit Hayom, as it's say in Ezra and Nehemiah books. They used to go to the big mountain facing the Jerusalem with prayer, mentioning the 10 commandments, the curse and the blessing that was in Har Ibal. And then the people of the community will clean up the mountain from everything that is impure. If it's animals that are not pure or dirt, it need to be holy mountain like Mount Sinai. The equivalent for a Brit, Chidush Brit, kind of commemorating the Brit again between Bnei Israel and Sinai. That's one of the major thing of the day. So that's why everything needs to be holy and pure. So people will be after shower wearing white clothes. The mountain is clean. Everyone is coming clean. Everyone is coming pure. So that's why you fast half a day because you need to be focused on the prayer. Everyone is following the prayer and listening, although the prayers are in the Ge'ez language, which is the holy language. And as we say in Hebrew, Amcha Yisrael, like the majority of the people of Israel do not know the holy language, but there's always a shaliach that translates everything for them, and people say Amen. And it's like a spiritual ecstasa that people really get into the prayer in a way that it's spiritual, very attached to it, because you know that this is the day that you stand before God as a community. If in the Kippur, the regular Kippur that we know is between you and your friend, and between you and yourself, and between you and your God, the Sigd is a Kippur that it's between the community as a community in front of God. So you can't also celebrate that without a community. And in Ethiopia, there was 3 major mountains. The first one is Ambover, the big one, and people will literally walk for days and hours to celebrate and mark the day together with the community members, because you can't do that by yourself in your home. It doesn't count. It's not the same if you're fasting at home and you're doing the prayer. You need to be with the rabbis and the entire community. And then what's happened is that the people of the close villages in Ambover will be the host, Echnasat Orchim, which is also something we learned from our forefather Abraham. So you open your house even to a stranger, but if it's a stranger that came to celebrate the holiday, you have to open your house and bring him into the feast in your house, and people will come with the bread they made at home and food, etc. So that's how we did it in Ethiopia. And there's like I don't remember, but my sister as a child do remember that being is the biggest and the major Jewish holiday for the Jews in Ethiopia, because they all were preparing. As a child, she always was excited about it because she will get a new white dress to the celebration, to the holiday, and there's a big festive of food, and all the uncles and cousins and everyone will come. So it's a big thing. And so that's one value. It's the community. It's commemorating Mount Sinai event. And the other value out of it, it's a day for forgiveness and a day for tshuva. And for many, many people, it's a day that when they come and ask for nodrim nedarim, I forgot how you say that in English, not making a promise, but you're making a vow in front of God. But as a community, as a people, you asking to be in tshuva and to be better people for as a chosen people. And the last sentence of the prayer is like what we do in the Haggadah. It's Shana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim, that's next year, and rebuild Jerusalem. So when we arrive to Israel and people still continue celebrating that, many people reach out to the rabbis, to the Ethiopian rabbis, and said, well, we don't need that holiday anymore because you are in Israel, you're in Jerusalem. And I remember myself asking my grandfather as well, who was the spiritual leader in our community, and he said, we still need that, Pnina, because first, not everyone is in Israel. Not everyone is redeemed. There is still a need for redemption. Second of all, Jerusalem is not rebuilt. There is a third temple should be rebuilt, and this is in our responsibility, the generation living now. And third, as a community, we need to be a whole, and we're not. It's divided place. It's divided society. So for many of our, the people that really come to pray and not just schmooze, because there's a lot of young generation that come in to meet their friends and family, and it's nice, but the adults in our community take it very seriously, the prayer. They spiritually get into it. They come in fasting from all over the country. It's happening in Jerusalem and Armon HaNetziv, if you happen to be in Israel next time. And they come in early in the morning until 12. They all just standing and praying for 4 hours, 5 hours fasting. And then the beautiful thing that happened lately is that the government understood that each woman, literally almost each woman that come in, bringing her own challah, she bake, because she want to have the blessing from the Holy of Holiness and not just at home. So next time I'm going to share with you pictures, but nowadays, you have a huge tent only for the challah, which is amazing. It's amazing. There's like a huge tent that the government built up for that day, and there is security watching, and all the women's bringing in front of the security the breads. The entire tent can be with like 400, 500 challah, homemade. And then the kesim entering and blessing on all the bread, all the challah all together. And then the beautiful part of it, it's like they will go out, and doesn't matter who brought the challah, they just cut pieces and spread it out to all the thousands of people coming, because it's a blessed bread from the kesim. So they continue the same prayer, the same ceremony now in Israel. A lot of municipalities provide buses for people to arrive to the main ceremony in Jerusalem. So we have tens of thousands of people coming all over the country. Some municipalities have their own celebration in their own city. I every year go to the main service in Jerusalem, which is really filling you with a lot of love and hope. Last year, unfortunately, because of the war, the rabbi decided that it's not appropriate to do it as a big fast and a big gathering, but they had a prayer screen on Zoom for all over the cities, praying for the hostages. And this year they decided to do it more modest, only prayers with no festive, no food, but very focused on the need of our society to be together and not divided, and they're going to be more focused on their prayer, and that's what they announced, and they're more going to talk and lecture and deliver to the Shlichet Tzibur to be more together and about being together and supporting each other and not dividing, and on the sake of the hostages and the soldiers to be back home.
Wow, that's really, really special. I like what they're doing this year.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. I don't know where Josh seems to have just disappeared. So I'm just going to pause it until he gets back, and then we can... This will go. Hi, Matty. Matty's our editor, so he can
He can edit out.
chop and change this afterwards.
I went into a prison with an
Yeah. Sorry, it's...
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. אני לא יודע...
You cutting off everything anyway, right?
Yeah.
I used to do ballet there as a kid in the studios. In the prison. And my mum didn't know that. In the prison. No, they have a studio in Kentish Town. Oh, I thought you meant you did ballet in the prison.
2 seconds, I'm just going to call...
Okay.
Apparently his battery has died.
Prison used to do family open day
okay,
where
fine.
they would like.
Says he's joining again in a second. I think he had a power cut or something.
Supposed to scare you into being good. No, it's basically like the judges and the lawyers and everything could bring their kids and families to the prison for like a fun day. So they put you in a cell and you have to try and break out. And... Surely you don't want kids to.
Do you hear my son in the background, Bella?
No, it's all...
No.
Okay.
Okay, here's Josh. Right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Josh, do you want to... Bella, whoever's... Do you want to pick up from the number 4?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm going to mute this off and let you go.
Awesome. Apologies.
Okay.
So you mentioned that kind of an element of it is a bit like the end of the Haggadah, the end of Yom Kippur, sort of Bashana Haba Abi Yerushalayim Habaniyah, like next year and rebuilt Jerusalem. Is it, and especially kind of you mentioned the last couple of years about the war, but even kind of since the big sort of Ethiopian Aliyah, has the meaning of Sigd changed kind of in modern day Israel compared to back in Ethiopia?
So first of all, it's become more and more a holiday that's been celebrated by the entire people in Israel, not only the Ethiopian. You know, the first years I remember that they used to say, "Oh, it's your holiday." What do you mean it's my holiday? It's only a holiday for the Ethiopian. Only the Ethiopian will go, which was kind of kilo sad because it is a Jewish holiday from the books of the entire Jewish people. We just kept it for many years for everyone. And lately you can see that a lot of the youth movements as a Tzofim and Bnei Akiva did an amazing job in bringing their youth movements into the main ceremony and developing curriculum around it. So that's changed. So you see the young generation that been born in Israel not being embarrassed or not knowing about it. I'm talking about the Ethiopian kids that born in here, and they come to through the youth movement or schools. The second thing that happened is that from 2008, it's become a law in Israel that it's a holiday. So when there is a law that it's declared it's a holiday, first of all, it's create a sense that you have to mark it everywhere in public area. So the school system, for example, if before that they will mark it only if you have Ethiopian students in your class, so they feel like they need to. Today they have to. Everyone, as you teach about Hanukkah, you have to teach about the Sigd. It's part of the yearly curriculum. It doesn't matter if you have Ethiopian kids or not, which I think that's amazing. And including the IDF, government offices, every place have to mark it. The second thing that I remember as a young students that we fight a lot about it, and back then the previous president, Zichrono Livracha, Shimon Peres, helped us to do it, It's to ensure that it's also budgeted in every minister. So it used to be only through the Minister of Culture as a holiday, but today it's through the Minister of Culture, Minister of Education, IDF, as I mentioned before, everywhere, the police department, and through the holiday, it's not like, at least for me as an activist and my friends, when we tried to push it forward, it wasn't about us wanting more people to come and celebrate with us in Jerusalem. We didn't care about that. It was more about ensuring that when you have that in your Jewish calendar, people start asking, oh, what is it? And then when people asking what is it, people start learning and educating, and there is less ignorance. So we really want to push that because it was a trigger for us to start and educating in a positive way about the Ethiopian community. And it's really opened the mind for many people to start asking questions about the history, the heritage. And all of a sudden, people knows that we come in with a lot of values, and we come in with an amazing heritage and history and legacy. That before that, some people assume that we just, Black people that happen to be Jews, that coming from Africa, we know culture, we know that was a lot of the assumption. Like, what you had, you didn't have any culture in Ethiopia, didn't have theater, etc. But we have a lot of our heritage that are unique and positive, and it's also gained a lot of pride, and confidence for the young generation of our community. So today, when you walk into the main ceremony in Jerusalem, you will not see only Ethiopian people. You'll see a lot of people that are non-Ethiopian, and it should be. I usually, when people reach out to me to help them to set up an event, because I used to produce a lot of events around the SIGD for Avichai Foundation, the municipalities, and for Shimon Peres back then, I usually say that ensure that it's not targeting only the Ethiopian community, because it's a Jewish holiday. It's for all. You guys in the UK also should celebrate that. It's yours. It's not, only for the Ethiopian people. And there is a really great, beautiful values about this holiday that we should carry and continue celebrate. It's about community. It's about, our brit, our a relationship with God, our covenant with God. It's relevant for every Jew out there, especially today, in my eyes, at least. It was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's given me some ideas as to maybe what we should be doing for programming as well.
Good.
So, a couple of questions. We sort of mentioned a bit around Israel, and you've kind of mentioned about what it was like, especially in terms of your education in Israel. But kind of growing up, how did you navigate balancing your Ethiopian heritage with the broader Israeli and Jewish culture, especially kind of as that's changed within society over the last few decades?
Hard question. Honestly, I never felt that I needed to. I think only lately as a mother, I feel like I need to work on it a lot. But as a teen, I was started as a child. As a child, we were the only Ethiopian family in the neighborhood I grew up. It was a neighborhood of Holocaust survivor and Russian speaker and Arabic in Haifa. So as being the only Ethiopian girl in the school and the only Ethiopian family in the neighborhood, I didn't bother even to bring up my own culture. I really want to be just an Israeli because everyone was Israelis, right? So I didn't even speak Amharic. I didn't use my Amharic name. I was Pnina, although I was born as Felegu. My mom spoke with us at home Amharic. I always answer her in Hebrew. I mean, until today, by the way, it is, and I know Amharic. It's not, I don't know. I know how to speak and I understand everything, but I never spoke to her in Amharic outside or even in-house. Because I felt that this is my way to integrate it faster. If you want to be like everyone, you just need to be like everyone, right? And by the way, it will sound funny. I never noticed even that I look different. I mean, my skin color, I never thought I look different because, everyone was Israeli. I was the only one as well. So no one even noticed that, or no one told me until I was in fourth grade that I'm Black or something. No one even say something about it, which was prospectively ahora, looking backward, I think it's beautiful. But no one until it was fourth grade mentioned something about it. But then when in fourth grade, there was the second wave of Aliyah from Ethiopia, the Salmon operation happened. And in 36 hours, they brought to Israel 14,000 Jews from Ethiopia in one Shabbat. And as the only Ethiopian family, I become like the one that needed to navigate and explain everyone who's those Ethiopian people coming as a child, as a 40 years old, right? So all of a sudden, the principal of the school, from the entire school, she chose me to guide the new immigrant that came from Ethiopia to our school. And I didn't understand why. And all of a sudden you understand that there is another group that you belong to. Because I understood the language they spoke Amharic, and I understood that, even though I choose not. I understood the names, I understood the smell of the food they brought with them, I understood the clothes, right? And I felt in between, because in one hand, I already were settled among my Israeli friends, and all of a sudden I've been kind of forced to be the one that welcoming the new immigrant that actually look much more like me than the others that I thought my friends. And that was the first time, I think, in my life at fourth grade that I start asking questions of identity and belonging and culture. And all of a sudden I was curious, to see if there's something unique, different. Is the difference unique or make you less unique or make you out of the box because you're different, things like that, which is a lot when I'm thinking about my kids today. They're not in that questions today. They're the same age, but not asking themselves questions like that. But I was really struggling. And still, it was easier for me to be just in Israel. Only when I was a teenager and in my high school, there were a bunch of other Ethiopian girls. It wasn't only me. And they were a group. They become like a clique that always walk together, did things together. They went to the SIG celebration together. All of a sudden I understood there's something about the culture that I need to be proud of and not avoid of it or ignore it, because it's who I am. And I think that was slowly something that, kind of goes with me, especially when I was a student in the Hebrew University and I was started being active at Yalla at campus, the students organization. And when I saw that the Hillel organization was very vocal about the different identities. There was like a Russian theater, there was an English speaker Bet Midrash, there was an LGBTQ organization, and I was again the only Ethiopian active at the Hillel. I said, wait a minute, why are you not bringing in my own culture? And I opened my own student club, which I call it Guzo B'Amharic, which is journey, Masa. And I was literally chasing after other Ethiopian students on campus to join me and become a group. And I remember that one of the girls told me, I don't understand why we need a group of only Ethiopian. Why you want to do something only for Ethiopian students? We just want to be like everyone. And I told her, Dafka, because of that, we do need the safe space of Ethiopian students. And I think since that, I become very active, about our culture and about awareness about who we are, which I think it's significant even today. But that group exist like for 2 years, 3 years in the Hebrew University, and they did copy paste in University of Haifa and Tel Aviv and IDC, which I love to see that the ripple effect of it, that other students just opened their own group. And it wasn't about being isolated. It was about more doing the research, on yourself, on your culture, being more understanding who you are. Because I think for many years, when you're asking how you balance between the two culture, for many years, many of us just ignored our own culture. It was easier for us just to be in Israeli. So even clothes and music and food, for years, for example, I didn't eat Ethiopian food at home. I mean, I ate it because I needed it, but I disliked it. I don't know why, even because it's really tasty and I love it today, and I make it to my own kids every Shabbat. But as a teen, you just want to be like everyone. You want to be integrated. And only lately as a student, something that I know today you can balance, and it's very important because beside the heritage and the culture and a lot of knowledge and very rich history we're bringing in, it's something that we can't just you can't just clear it off from yourself. It's have to be part of it. So for me, as someone that grew up in Orthodox education system, I may consider myself more traditional today than Orthodox I was before, but it's a combination of all, because in the end, you are in a triple identity. It's being Ethiopian, Jewish, and Israeli. And I feel like I have to hold it in a whole, all of those three, without debating myself who come first. I don't think it's a question of I'm more Ethiopian than, sometimes people ask me, are you more Ethiopian or more Israeli? It's all about who's more. I think and it's took time. It took me a while to balance between the three in myself. And as I said before, as today as a mother, I see it more on my kids. It's funny that 40 years later, it still exists, like the challenge of balance and identity. Because for themselves, all my three kids, I mean, one was born in America, but two was born in Israel. For all the three of them, they are not Ethiopian. They call the Israeli because they're born in Israel, right? But culturally, they do know that there is at home, in our home, another culture, very unique for them, and that their friends do not have. And it's okay. I think it's fine. We don't need to make a big issue out of it. I'm trying not.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. So you touched a bit about the progress and the contributions that the Ethiopian Jews have made in Israel's society. But despite this, there have been challenges around integration and acceptance. Have you and your family experienced any of these challenges as Ethiopian Jews?
And so, first of all, I have to say that for a community in our side, which is around 170,000 Ethiopian Jews in Israel at the moment, 60% of them born in Israel, and the majority of our parents of my generation were people that unfortunately do not have any orientation of education. That means that it's not about even academia. They never been in high school, not to talk about elementary school as well. So if you're taking that in 4 hours, coming to a very progressive modern country like Israel, I'm very optimistic. I think we did well for 40 years being here, our generation and the generation to come, right? But still, there's a lot of ignorance, and there's a lot, in my eyes, quiet racism. That's how I called it. It's like underneath the table. No one gonna tell me you're not allowed to be here, or you're not allowed to do this position, or you cannot do this position, which I'm today. I think the senior position in a Jewish national organization in Israel is Keren Hayesod, a Jewish agency, and Histadrut HaTzionit. I'm the only senior Ethiopian person in a very senior position, right? So no one will tell me you cannot be there, but I do get a lot of, eyes raising and surprise people to see me. And truly, sometimes people will ask me, really? You manage 100 people underneath you. Really? You manage a budget of $1 million. Can, why not? And sometimes I just want to say, well, I grew up like you here. I mean, I came like when I was 3 years old, right? So what should be the difference? Who knows what's the background of my parents, right? No one asks the background of your parents to articulate if you can do that or not. So many of the cases in Israel, for many Ethiopians like myself, is that there are a lot of white racism and a lot of really wrong assumption based on your skin color. That people just assume that you're supposed to do this and not that. Or people think that, a lot of people think that we're very quiet and very nice. And if I, chas v'chalila, open my mouth and speak, they will be surprised that I can talk so loud and with vision. And, I will give you an example. I was in a very important conversation with, I'll say, high-ranked people in the room. And it was an institution, a very well-known institution in Jerusalem. And I sat there on behalf of the Jewish Agency to represent in the discussion. And people talk, and I raised my hand to ask a question and make a comment. And then a professor in the room came up to me after the meeting and told me, wow, you speak so, how say that, profoundly, and your English and your Hebrew is so articulate and then very high Hebrew. How come? And I was like, I mean, the first immediate thing that I want to do is to hang him on the tree next to me. But I told him, I mean, why not? I grew up on the language of Hebrew. Why should I? Which kind of Hebrew you accept into everything? Like, no, I saw the new immigrant coming, but I'm not a new immigrant. Why compare me to a new immigrant? I grew up here exactly like you. So I should have the same Hebrew like yourself. And he heard that I'm being offended. So I said, no, I just want to tell you that it's really heartwarming the way your community integrated to the society in Israel. We love you. You're not like the Russian. You're very nice. And it's so nice to have you, very quiet and very modest community. And that's even pissed me more to hear that. Like, what, you like us more in comparing to the Russian? Don't compare me to other. You like me more because I'm quiet? Because so I can't be chutzpanit, I can't be, I can't be mad at you. So those kind of things happen a lot. And then unfortunately, there's also a lot of cases of police profiling, which today, after the last case in 2018, the police department is working on that, trying to educate their own police, people. But there is an immediate assumption that if you see, and it's happened to myself, unfortunately, as well, if you see me in a very wealthy area that happened to be that I can be there, and a policeman will question you, what are you doing in this area? You're not supposed to be here. So again, it's not like the institution is there's a policy in the institution saying Black people cannot sit here and do that. It's not about that. And it's not the prime minister, it's not the government, but there's a lot of ignorant people, unfortunately, that make an assumption based on your skin color. And if that person happened to be a principal of a school, it's a shame, because then kids at school that happen to be born to Ethiopian family can be in a situation that can harm their feelings only because the principal of the school is, in my eyes, an ignorant that do not know a lot. As a Korean, unfortunately, it's happening. And I think many people have probably cases like myself more than something very racist, as the history of North America. And I don't like it when people compare, the African American narrative to our narrative, because it's totally different. I mean, we part of the Jewish states because, first of all, we're Jewish, not because we Black people that joined the Jewish people. And then there is a lot of stupid people that what can we say, and ignorant people that cannot look beyond your skin color. And that's unfortunate, but that's happened a lot in many places. And it's happened also for Russian people, and with a lot of assumption about what Russian can do or be, and about Arabic people as well. And that's the most annoying thing, that sometimes random Israelis will put you in the same basket. Arab, Russian, Ethiopian, and then you kind of the basket of the other. And that's happened a lot when you have an immigrant country like us, that people immigrant from 60 different countries around the globe. I don't know how much you can fight it, but
yeah. So leading on from that about the different misconceptions that people can have and that preconceived notion, how do you think we could educate people, especially like younger students, about the different cultures and the traditions?
So first of all, I think this is our obstacle and challenge, but it's also our strength and beauty as a state, that it's a very, very diverse country. People come in, as I mentioned, I checked that, so I know the number, coming from 60 different countries in Israel, Jews. And there's small communities like us, and the Indian, which is even smaller than us, the Yehudei Hodu. And at the same times, the melting pot that Ben Gurion tried to do 75 years ago do not work anymore. The system of melting pot is not working. The Tzabar idea is not working. People want to be who they are culturally and, historically, and also being Israeli. And as I said before, I think to educate that it's okay to hold a triple identity or four type of identity, because sometimes you can be also Ethiopian, Jewish, Israeli, and LGBTQ, and it's okay. And no judgment, and don't try to put us in boxes. I think that's the best way to overcome the challenge. But it's hard because people just, it's easier for us to, to put you in boxes. It's easier for all of us. I fall into it sometimes as myself, right? You always need to be aware, and you need always to work on it, and not try to put it back, especially sometimes when you educate abroad, and I did it myself as a shlicha, as emissary. You're doing a lecture about Israel, and people like to give the faces of Israel, and you put every face in their own backs and what's bring into it, without talking about how the diversity affects the entire country in the end. Because בסוף, in the end, you get here a mixture of colors, a mixture of songs and music, a mixture of food and language. Even our language is Hebrew. It's not the Hebrew anymore of Ben Yehuda. It's a Hebrew mixture of words from Russian and Romania and Poland, right? And I think that's the beauty and the strength of us. And to educate more about what each of us brought with him to the country, as you're doing now, like bringing the SIGD is a gift. It's not only ours, and being able to share that with everyone, I think it's only a gift, but it's our responsibility. And almost every sector in our society, there's a Jewish community, have so much contribute to the entire Jewish world and the Jewish community that we're not aware enough about it, or we're not telling the story speak. And I think in the end, if you giving more time to hearing stories and narrative of people, and not trying to compare or not trying to put them into a specific place, so you're more open-minded and you're more able to communicate and become a friend of that person.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for being so open with us, and for sharing sort of some of the positives, but also some of the more challenging parts of life in Israel. As a kind of final question, what's your one key message you want to share with those, especially those who might not be so familiar with your community's history and culture? No pressure.
There is an Ethiopian phrase you say? Phrase?
Yeah.
That I also have it reading and draw in my office for the last 10 years, that I think that's the right message to what we just spoke. It said, "Oh, babet, אור בבטן כמו אור בכד, חוכמה בבטן כמו אור בכד." I need to first translate it to Hebrew, the Amharic to Hebrew, and now to English. Wisdom and in your stomach, or wisdom in your heart. It's like a light in a van, a light in not a van.
Try it in Hebrew.
חוכמה בבטן כאור בכד. How do you say kad? Kad, like where you put the flowers in.
Oh, a vase.
Vase, slicha. So wisdom in your heart or stomach, because stomach symbolically in Ethiopia say a lot about, when you're hurting feelings of someone, it's like a light in a vase. And the phrase is actually trying to say that if you put a light in a vase, it's not shining, it doesn't show the light, it's closing down, right? It's shutting down the light. And it's like the wisdom. If you have your wisdom to share, a story to share, a knowledge that you have, and you keep it to yourself because you think it's not going to be appreciated, it's not worth anything if you keep it to yourself. You need to share that like a light, and then it's light out there. And I think, just talking, just following what we spoke, there's so much knowledge in our community, and so much wisdom, and also in other communities, that first of all, we need to learn and educate ourselves to share it in order to enlighten other. But also people need to reach out and be proactive about, open their hearts and enlighten themselves with the wisdom and knowledge of others. And I think, if every one of us will be able to share without trying or hoping for, being shining more out there, it's just going to be a room full of light. If you understand what I'm saying, I think that's
Sure.
that's a message also of the holiday, because in the end of the day, if you're not there to do it together and support each other and bring the lights of everyone to the same room, you can't do that by yourself, locked down at home. It's not worth anything, right? So it's the same with the knowledge and the wisdom we all share. And I think I learned it on myself only when I start opening up and sharing and talking. I see how much there is a lot of willingness from the other side to learn more, to be open for it, to not judge me as from what I look like, but judge me by what I'm saying and sharing. וזה חשוב.
For sure. And thank you so much for sharing that kind of wisdom, that light with us. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Yalla, the podcast of Jewish students.
And a big, big thank you for Pnina for joining us and sharing your experience and your heritage with us as part of your work with the Jewish Agency. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with others who are interested in creating a safer world for us all.
And you can follow UJS on all socials and UJS let's redo that, we've chopped that one out. You can follow UJS on all the socials and UJS_UK for updates on future episodes, events, and opportunities.
If there's anything in this podcast or if events on campus recently have been triggering, don't forget that UJS's 24/7 dedicated welfare support line is open. You can call us on 020-7424-3281 to speak to one of our experienced staff or volunteers.
Don't forget to tune in next time to hear more incredible stories and meet some amazing people on Yalla, the podcast of Jewish students. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. See you all on campus soon. Amazing. Thank you very much, Pnina.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Are you going to send me a copy?
For sure.
Yeah. Pnina, we can send you, we can also tag you when we post it out when it is ready.
Yeah, please.
I think you were in contact with Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Also, yeah. So I'll talk to Illinois and we will let you know when it's going out and when it's like what tags and like if we post it on LinkedIn, we can copy you in all the rest of it.
Thank you, Josh and Bella. You're wonderful.
No worries.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
Thank you very much.
Apologies for the technical issue halfway through.